The desert night outside the Burj Al Arab glittered like scattered diamonds, but inside Khalil al-Rashid's private office, the air felt heavy, too still for comfort. He just hung up on a call from London, his jaw locked tight, eyes unreadable. Across from him, Ayla Nazir sat amid open case files and coded reports, watching the man who once seemed untouchable wrestle with something he couldn't name. "It's not over," he said finally, voice low. "They froze Blackwell and Ames' assets, yes, but someone's still pulling strings from behind the curtain." She rubbed her temples, exhaustion pressing behind her eyes. For weeks they'd been chasing digital trails through offshore accounts, shell companies, ghost directors that evaporated when subpoenaed. "I thought James Blackwell's arrest ended it," she murmured. "It should have." Khalil looked up, and for a flicker of a moment she saw the boy from Al-Karama, the one who'd once slept on cardboard, not the billionaire who commanded empires. "It should have," he repeated. "But empires don't die cleanly, Ayla. They rot in secret." Outside, waves struck the shore, rhythmic, relentless. Inside, silence stretched until she broke it. "You got another message, didn't you?" He slid a tablet across the desk. Encrypted email. Unknown sender. Only one line visible before the cipher corrupted itself. He was never working alone. "Look inside your own house." Her blood chilled. "You think it's real?" "I think whoever sent it knows too much." The thought clawed at her composure. She'd rebuilt her life from ashes, fought her way back into law, trusted this man when logic said run. Now someone wanted to tear that fragile order apart. She forced a breath. "Then we start inside. Every partner, every advisor. If there's rot, we cut it out." Khalil's mouth curved faintly, the half-smile he wore before impossible deals. "I knew you'd say that." He rose, retrieving a thin folder from the safe. "Then you'll love this. An anonymous whistleblower dropped these to our compliance desk this morning." Ayla flipped the file open. Transaction logs. Dozens of them. One name repeated. A subsidiary registered in Luxembourg under Rashid Holdings Europe SA. She frowned. "That's one of yours." "It was," he said. "Until we dissolved it 2 years ago." "Then why is it moving $5 million transfers every week?" The question hung like a blade. Ayla's pulse quickened as she scanned the timestamps. Each transfer coincided with the dates of Khalil's clean energy acquisitions, deals she'd personally cleared. If the records were genuine, someone had been laundering money through his own empire under his signature. "You're thinking what I'm thinking," he said quietly. "That someone inside is framing you, or using your name." He nodded once. "And I intend to find out which." For a long moment they simply stared at each other, the quiet between them heavy with unspoken fear. When she finally spoke, her voice was measured, professional again. "Then we treat this as an internal investigation. No one outside compliance knows. No external auditors. If the leak is real, we can't scare them off." Khalil hesitated, studying her face, the same face that had once challenged him in a candlelit restaurant and changed his life. "Ayla, this could turn ugly. If it's someone high-level. I know what's at stake." She met his gaze steadily. "You hired me for integrity. Let me do what you hired me for." A faint smile tugged at his lips. "Remind me never to underestimate you." By midnight, the office was a battlefield of data. Ayla's laptop glowed against the dark windows as she cross-checked IP addresses and document signatures. Khalil leaned against the window frame, phone pressed to his ear in terse Arabic. Each time he spoke the words "trust no one," something inside her twisted. It was like watching him rebuild the armor she'd spent months helping him shed. Hours passed before she found it, a metadata trail buried in the Luxembourg filings. Not a forger. Not a hacker. An insider. "Got something," she said, voice sharp. Khalil was beside her in seconds. She pointed at the digital signature attached to the transfer authorizations. Each of these documents was validated by a compliance officer named Merrick Havel. But according to HR, Havel's contract ended 8 months before these transactions started. So someone's using his credentials. Or, Isla said carefully, someone never deleted his system access. Which means someone wanted a ghost employee to exist. Khalil's fingers drummed against the desk, the tempo of a man calculating odds. Havel was based in Geneva. She looked up. So's our European Treasury hub. Their eyes met. Same thought. Same risk. Within minutes, Khalil was calling in his jet. I need to be there by morning. I'm coming with you, she said. He didn't argue. He just nodded, as if the possibility of leaving her behind had never existed. The Gulf Stream sliced through pre-dawn clouds, its cabin bathed in muted gold from the rising sun. Isla sat opposite Khalil, reviewing hard copy files under a soft lamp. He watched her for a moment, the way she bit her lip when concentrating, the quiet determination that always seemed to anchor him when the world tilted. He thought of how improbable it was, this alliance born from a $100 million mistake and a single clause. Why do you always take the window seat? He asked suddenly. She glanced up, half smiling. So I can remember the world's bigger than whatever problem we're chasing. He liked that answer more than he expected. They landed in Geneva before sunrise. The city still slept, fog curling over the lake like ghost breath. A waiting car ferried them to the marble-fronted tower that housed Rashid Holdings Europe. Security recognized Khalil instantly. Doors opened without question. Too easily, Isla thought. Too practiced. Inside, the halls were silent except for the soft click of her heels on stone. She stopped outside the compliance floor, badge in hand, and whispered, "If anyone's still using Havel's access, logging in now will trigger a network echo. We'll see exactly where they are." Khalil folded his arms. "Do it." Her fingers flew across the keyboard of a vacant terminal. The system protested, then relented. Within seconds, green code streamed down the monitor. A heartbeat later, the echo appeared. Active connection, internal IP, location, Geneva, Executive Suite 17C. "That's your floor," she breathed. Khalil's expression hardened. "Then let's pay a visit." The elevator ride was wordless, tension coiled tight. When the doors opened, Isla's pulse spiked. Office 17C belonged to David Chen, Khalil's oldest friend and business partner, the same man who had once vouched for her character. Khalil stood motionless for a beat, disbelief flickering across his face. Then he moved, swift and silent, badge unlocking the door. Inside, the office was dark except for the blue glow of multiple monitors. A figure sat at the desk, typing furiously. At the sound of their entrance, he froze. "David," Khalil said softly, almost gently. "Tell me I'm wrong." Chen turned, eyes rimmed with sleepless red. "You shouldn't be here." "Apparently, neither should you," Isla said. On one of the screens, the Luxembourg accounts scrolled in real time, funds routing through subsidiaries, disappearing into shell trusts in the Caymans. Every click was another nail in Khalil's empire. "Why?" Khalil's voice cracked, raw disbelief breaking through steel. "After everything?" David's shoulders sagged. "You think you built this empire alone? You think your moral crusade didn't cost people careers, fortunes? I kept the machine running while you pretended to be clean. That machine was laundering blood money. And it kept 10,000 employees paid. You were too busy polishing your conscience to see what your purity was costing us." Isla stepped forward. "So you faked Havel's credentials. You used his access to move the funds." David looked at her, a flicker of regret softening his anger. "You should have stayed invisible, Isla. The world's kinder to ghosts." Then his hand dropped toward the desk drawer. "Don't," Khalil warned. But the moment fractured. A sharp metallic click, not a gun, an emergency alarm. Security lights flooded the office crimson as steel shutters began descending. "He's locking us in," Isla shouted. "Or covering his escape," Khalil snapped, lunging forward, but David had already bolted through the adjoining corridor. The shutter slammed down, cutting them off. Sirens wailed. Isla spun toward the control console, typing commands faster than breath. I can override it, but we've got 90 seconds before the lockdown seals. Do it. Her hands flew, code streaming, override accepted. The shutters, jolted mid-descent, froze. Khalil forced them open just wide enough for both to crawl under, tearing his sleeve in the process. By the time they reached the stairwell, David was gone. All that remained was an open service door leading to the parking level and the fading echo of footsteps. Khalil stood there, breathing hard, fury and heartbreak warring in his eyes. My oldest friend. Isla placed a hand on his arm, steady and sure. Then he knows you too well. He'll expect anger. We use strategy. He turned to her, the storm in him slowly finding center again. Strategy. She nodded. We let him run, for now. Every account he touches, every safe house he uses, leaves a trail. And when he's sure he's free, that's when we close the net. Khalil's gaze lingered on her, gratitude and something deeper flickering beneath exhaustion. You really believe we can catch him? I caught a $100 million fraud while serving wine, she said with quiet conviction. How hard can one traitor be? For the first time that night, he laughed, a rough, disbelieving sound that eased the tension just enough to breathe again. Then let's hunt a ghost, he said. Outside, dawn finally broke over Lake Geneva, sunlight spilling through the clouds like truth forcing its way into dark rooms. And as the city woke, two figures stood against the glass facade of Rashid Holdings Europe, partners once again on the edge of a scandal that could destroy everything they'd built. But Isla Nazir had learned long ago, when the world tries to bury you, you don't hide. You dig. And you bring the truth up with you. The private jet cut through the night over the Alps, chasing a man who'd once been family. From the cockpit came the steady hum of turbines, but inside the cabin silence ruled, heavy, brittle, and alive with what hadn't yet been said. Isla sat across from Khalil, laptop balanced on her knees, tracking the encrypted trail David Chern had left behind. He's heading east, she said finally. Vienna, maybe Budapest. Multiple VPN jumps, but the latency suggests Central Europe. Khalil didn't answer. His gaze was fixed out the window, eyes reflecting the glow of city lights below. The sharp, calculated man she'd met in Manhattan was gone. In his place sat someone older, quieter, carved by betrayal. You still think he was working alone? She asked softly. He turned to her. David handled our offshore structures. He could hide billions if he wanted. But that message, look inside your own house, it wasn't from him. Someone else lit the fuse. Meaning there's a second mole. He nodded slowly. And we just lost the only person who could lead us to them. Isla closed the laptop. Then we force him out of hiding. Khalil's brow furrowed. How? By using what he values most. Money. He's been rerouting funds through Luxembourg to a Cayman account, right? We trace the shell companies backward, plant a false transfer, a bait of 50 million from a phantom investor. If he's watching, he'll bite. The corner of Khalil's mouth twitched, admiration flickering through fatigue. You think like a predator now. I've learned from one, she said, half smiling. The silence that followed wasn't cold, it was electric. The air between them pulsed with everything unspoken since Dubai. Trust, fear, something dangerously close to love. But there was no room for either tonight. By the time they landed in Vienna, the city was shrouded in early morning fog. Khalil's security team had already secured a floor of the Palais Hotel, its marble halls echoing with the hush of old money and newer secrets. From the suite, Isla established a secure connection with their cybersecurity firm in New York. The decoy accounts live, the technician confirmed over speaker. 50 million in phantom assets, traced through a Hong Kong intermediary. If anyone touches it, we'll know. Good, Isla said. Now we wait. Khalil poured coffee into 2 crystal cups, hands steady despite the tension coiled in his shoulders. You ever think about what waiting costs? She glanced at him. Meaning? Every hour we sit still, He's out there, selling data, forging evidence, turning allies. I built this company on movement. Waiting feels like surrender. It's not surrender, she said. It's strategy. He studied her for a long moment before his tone softened. You really believe we can bring him back? Alive? I don't know if we can, she admitted. But I believe we have to try. Because once we cross the line into vengeance, we stop being the good guys. The words seemed to strike something deep in him. He looked down, tracing the rim of his cup. You sound like the person I used to be before all this. Maybe you still are. The quiet hum of electronics filled the room until a sharp tone broke it. An alert. Isla snapped toward her screen. He took the bait. On the monitor, lines of data cascaded downward, tracing the signal from Hong Kong to Prague to Zurich, she breathed. He's in Zurich. Khalil was already on his feet. Then so are we. Zurich's financial district gleamed under the noon sun, glass towers cutting sharp lines against the sky. Khalil and Isla walked side by side through the lobby of a private bank that, on paper, no longer existed. Inside, the air was cold, efficient, and full of secrets. The bank manager greeted them with the stiff courtesy reserved for people too rich to question. Mr. Al-Rashid, we weren't expecting. I'm not here as a client, Khalil interrupted. I'm here as an owner. The man's smile faltered. Of course, sir. How may we assist? By opening access to all sub-accounts under Rashid Holdings Europe. The manager hesitated. I'm afraid that would require. It requires my authorization, Khalil said, sliding a digital token across the counter. And hers. The man blinked at Isla's credentials, hesitated, then entered a series of commands. The system hesitated, then flashed. Access denied. Restricted by executive override. Khalil's eyes darkened. That override code, who has it? The manager swallowed. Only 2 people, sir. You and Mr. Chen. Isla leaned in, voice calm but deadly. Trace it. The manager nodded shakily, typing commands. It was activated from an off-site terminal 3 minutes ago. Where? Khalil asked. Bahnhofstrasse, the man said. Office complex, suite 901. They were already moving. The building was anonymous. Gray steel, mirrored glass, the kind of place billionaires used to vanish in plain sight. Inside, Isla and Khalil rode the elevator in silence, each lost in their own storm. I keep asking myself, Khalil murmured, how long he was planning this. Since London, Isla said. He saw what Blackwell's empire became and decided to build his own. When the doors opened, the corridor was empty, too empty. Khalil's security detail fanned out, but Isla stopped them. He's expecting you, she whispered. He's not expecting me. She slipped inside first. The office smelled of ozone and printer ink. Multiple monitors glowed with cascading code, offshore transfers in motion. And at the desk, calm as ever, sat David Chen. You're faster than I expected, he said without looking up. Stop the transfers, Isla said. Now. He smiled faintly. You of all people should appreciate leverage. I'm not the villain here, Isla. I'm correcting the system. Khalil built an empire pretending it was clean, but it runs on the same corruption as every other fortune. You're rationalizing theft. I'm redistributing it. By hiding it in your own name, she shot back. You didn't expose corruption, you replaced it. He turned finally, eyes tired, almost gentle. You're better than him, you know. You still believe truth matters. That's why I sent the message. What message? Look inside your own house. Who did you think warned you? She froze. You. Of course me. I wanted you to see it for yourself. The hypocrisy. The rot. I thought you'd understand. He reached into his jacket, and for a split second, fear flared, but he only produced a drive. Evidence. Years of it. Proves half his board are laundering through his own shell networks. You expose this, and he falls. But you'll finally be free of him. Isla stared at the drive, pulse pounding. You're lying. Am I? His voice softened. You think Khalil didn't know? That all those phantom accounts under his name were accidents? I didn't build this empire. I just stopped pretending it was clean. Behind them, the door clicked open. Khalil stepped in, eyes locked on his former friend. Then show me, he said. David smiled sadly. You wouldn't survive it. I already did once, Khalil said. Now put the drive down. For a heartbeat, everything held. 3 people, 1 room, and the weight of $1 billion truth. Then David placed the drive on the desk and took a step back. It's yours, he said quietly. But once you open it, you'll never unsee what's inside. Khalil didn't move. You want to destroy me, David? Do it with facts, not fiction. Facts are exactly what you'll find, David said, and hit enter on his keyboard. The monitors erupted in light. Financial records, encrypted memos, internal communications, all spilling across the screens. And among them, Khalil's signature, approving transfers he'd never seen. Isla's stomach dropped. Khalil. It's fabricated, he said quickly, but his voice cracked. David's smile was bitter. You wanted integrity, my friend. There it is. The truth's as dirty as the lies. He turned to leave, but before he reached the door, security stormed in. The chaos that followed was swift. Shouts, commands, the metallic snap of handcuff. David didn't resist. He just looked at Isla once more, something like pity in his eyes. You'll see. Eventually. Hours later, back in the hotel, Khalil sat in silence as Isla scrolled through the recovered data. Each document she opened left her more unsettled. Some forgeries were obvious, others flawless. Enough truth laced between lies to make the impossible believable. They're deepfakes, she said at last. He combined real approvals with AI-generated document. It's sophisticated. Khalil leaned back, eyes hollow. It's enough to destroy me in the court of public opinion. Then we stay ahead of it, she said. We don't hide. We expose it ourselves, before anyone else can twist it. He looked at her sharply. You'd risk your career again for me? She met his gaze steadily. I didn't rebuild my life to run from truth. If we fall clean. The silence that followed was different this time, something raw and human passing between them. Khalil reached across the table, his hand closing over hers. You could walk away, he said quietly. I could, she replied. But I won't. In that moment, the exhaustion of betrayal melted into something fierce, a shared defiance. The same force that had drawn them together at a restaurant table years ago now forged something unbreakable. They spent the night drafting disclosures, aligning timelines, building a public dossier of evidence that would expose David's manipulations before he could release his own narrative. By dawn, the package was ready, encrypted, time-stamped, and addressed to every major financial regulator in Europe. Once this goes out, Isla said, there's no undoing it. Khalil smiled faintly. Then let it go. She pressed send. The emails launched into the digital ether, scattering across servers and continents like sparks into dry air. Outside, Zurich woke to a new day. Khalil rose, moved to the window, and watched the sun climb over the Limmat River. You ever wonder, he said, if integrity is just another form of rebellion? Isla joined him. Maybe. But it's the only rebellion worth leading. He turned to her, something fragile but hopeful in his expression. We lost a friend tonight. She nodded. And gained a cause. As the city lights spilled across the room, washing the last shadows from their faces, Isla realized the truth that had eluded her for years. Survival wasn't enough. You had to live for something. And standing beside Khalil, his empire on fire, their reputations in peril, she finally knew what that something was. Not power. Not redemption. Just truth. And the courage to defend it together.